When combat pilot Alice Carter's radar system malfunctioned, 20 enemy aircraft surrounded her until she shot them down one by one with manual targeting. Captain Alice Carter gripped the controls of her AH-64 Apache attack helicopter as she soared over the Nevada desert, her steel-gray eyes scanning the horizon through her helmet-mounted display. At 31, she was the youngest pilot ever to be assigned solo deep strike missions, and today's operation would prove why the Pentagon trusted her with their most critical assignments. Thunderbird Base, this is Carter 1, Alice reported into her helmet mic. Approaching target zone. Enemy air activity confirmed on long-range sensors. Copy, Carter 1. Intelligence indicates approximately 20 enemy aircraft in your sector, mixed fighters and attack helicopters. Your mission is to neutralize the threat and clear the airspace for our ground forces. Alice checked her weapon systems one final time. Her Apache carried 16 Hellfire missiles, a 30mm chain gun with 1,200 rounds, and 2 rocket pods loaded with Hydra 70 unguided rockets. Against normal odds, it was more than enough firepower to handle any threat, but today's odds were anything but normal. The enemy had deployed their entire Western Air Squadron to this sector, 20 of their most advanced aircraft piloted by their best aviators. Intelligence suggested they were protecting a high-value target that could shift the balance of the entire conflict. Visual contact, Alice announced as enemy aircraft appeared on the horizon. Count 20 hostiles. Looks like 12 fighters and 8 attack helicopters. They're moving in coordinated formation. Through her Apache's advanced targeting system, Alice could see the enemy formation approaching with military precision. Their lead pilot was clearly experienced, maintaining perfect spacing and altitude while directing his squadron's approach. But Alice's story doesn't end here, because when her radar system malfunctioned, what she did changed all aerial combat doctrine. Carter 1, be advised. We're detecting electronic warfare interference in your sector, came the urgent voice from Thunderbird Base. Enemy jamming systems are targeting your electronics. Alice felt her stomach drop as warning lights began flashing across her instrument panel. Her radar display flickered, then went completely black. The targeting computer started throwing error messages, and her missile guidance systems showed multiple failures. Thunderbird Base, I'm experiencing total radar failure, Alice reported, fighting to keep her voice steady. Targeting computers are down, missile guidance offline. I'm flying blind out here. Carter 1, recommend immediate abort. Without radar and targeting systems, you cannot engage 20 hostiles effectively. Return to base for equipment reset. Alice looked at the enemy formation closing in on her position. 20 aircraft against 1 Apache helicopter was already impossible odds. Without her advanced electronics, it became a suicide mission that no rational pilot would attempt. But Alice Carter had never been accused of being entirely rational. Negative, Thunderbird Base. Ground forces are counting on air superiority. I'm not leaving them exposed to enemy air attack. Carter 1, without targeting systems, you cannot achieve missile lock. How do you propose to engage 20 hostiles? Alice switched her Apache to manual flight mode, feeling the helicopter's raw power respond to her direct control. The same way pilots fought before computers existed, with skill, instinct, and superior flying. The enemy squadron had spread into attack formation, clearly confident that their electronic warfare systems had neutralized the lone Apache's threat capability. Their lead pilot's voice crackled over the radio frequencies. American helicopter, you are outnumbered 20-1 and your systems are compromised. Surrender now and you will be treated as prisoner of war. Alice smiled grimly inside her helmet. This is Captain Alice Carter, United States Army. I don't surrender and I don't retreat. If you want this airspace, you're going to have to take it. She pushed her Apache into a steep dive, using the desert terrain to mask her approach. Without radar, she'd have to rely on visual targeting and manual fire control, techniques that modern pilots rarely practiced because computer systems made them unnecessary. The first enemy fighter came at her from the east, confident that his superior speed and advanced missiles would end the engagement quickly. What he didn't expect was Alice's immediate response. Instead of trying to outrun the fighter, Alice pulled her Apache into an impossible maneuver, a vertical climb that used the helicopter's superior agility against the jet's speed advantage. The fighter pilot, committed to his high-speed attack run, couldn't adjust quickly enough. Alice manually aligned her 30mm chain gun and fired a precise burst. Without computer assistance, she had to calculate lead time, bullet drop, and target movement entirely by instinct. The armor-piercing rounds found their mark, and the enemy fighter exploded in a brilliant fireball. "First kill confirmed," Alice announced calmly. 19 hostiles remaining. Now comes the most shocking part. When Alice's true flying mastery was revealed, even the enemy squadron leader considered surrender. The enemy formation reacted with shocked disbelief. Their electronic warfare systems were supposed to render the Apache helpless, but instead, they just watched their lead fighter get destroyed by manual gunnery that shouldn't have been possible. "How did she make that shot?" the enemy squadron leader demanded over their communications. "Her targeting systems are completely dead." Alice was already moving to her next target. She'd identified the enemy's weakness. They were too dependent on their advanced systems and predictable tactics. Against a pilot who could think and fly like the old masters, their technological advantages became liabilities. The second enemy aircraft, an attack helicopter, tried to engage Alice in close-quarters combat. The pilot was skilled and aggressive, but he was fighting according to modern doctrine that assumed both sides would use computer-assisted targeting. Alice fought like a gunfighter from the Old West. She used every feature of the desert landscape, mesas, canyons, rock formations, to break visual contact and reappear from unexpected angles. Her Apache danced through the air with a grace that defied physics, each maneuver calculated to position her enemies exactly where she wanted them. When the enemy helicopter committed to an attack run through a narrow canyon, Alice was waiting. She'd anticipated his flight path and positioned herself for a perfect ambush. Her Hellfire missile, guided by manual targeting and pure pilot instinct, struck the enemy aircraft dead center. "Second kill confirmed," Alice reported. "Target destroyed." The enemy squadron leader, Colonel Petrov, watched his second aircraft fall and felt genuine fear for the first time in his 20-year career. This American pilot was doing something that his training said was impossible. "All units, concentrate fire on the Apache," Petrov ordered. "Use overwhelming numbers. She cannot fight all of us simultaneously." But Alice had already anticipated that exact response. But wait, you haven't heard the most unforgettable part of the story yet. When Alice made that maneuver, a 20-year aviation secret was finally solved. Alice pulled her Apache into a maneuver that would be studied in aviation academies for decades. She used the enemy's numerical advantage against them. Instead of trying to avoid their concentrated fire, she positioned herself so that their attacks would interfere with each other. She flew directly into the center of their formation, forcing them to either hold fire or risk hitting their own aircraft. Then, using her helicopter's superior maneuverability, she began picking them off one by one while they struggled to coordinate their attacks without causing friendly fire. Her third kill came when 2 enemy fighters tried to sandwich her between them. Alice executed a perfect barrel roll that put both aircraft in each other's line of fire. When they realized the danger and tried to break off, she was perfectly positioned to engage both with her chain gun. Both fighters went down in flames. "Double kill confirmed," Alice announced. 17 hostiles remaining. Colonel Petrov couldn't believe what he was seeing. His pilots were among the best in the world, flying advanced aircraft with superior weapon systems. But they were being systematically destroyed by a pilot who was fighting with techniques that predated modern aviation technology. "This is impossible," Petrov muttered. "She's flying like she can see the future." Alice's 4th and 5th kills came in rapid succession. She'd identified the pattern in the enemy formation and started exploiting their predictable responses. When they zigged, she was already positioned where they would zag. When they climbed, she was waiting in their dive path. Her manual targeting had become supernaturally accurate. Each shot, each missile, each maneuver was calculated with mathematical precision that no computer could match because it incorporated variables that no computer could process: intuition, experience, and pure flying instinct. Here's where the story really begins. Because when Alice's radar failed, her manual flying mastery collapsed the entire enemy air strategy. The remaining enemy pilots were beginning to panic. They'd started the engagement confident in their overwhelming numerical advantage, but half their squadron was already burning wreckage scattered across the Nevada desert. Alice wasn't just beating them, she was making them look like amateur pilots flying training aircraft. Her sixth kill demonstrated why she was considered the military's most gifted helicopter pilot. An enemy fighter tried to engage her in a head-to-head attack, betting that his superior speed and firepower would win the engagement. Alice let him commit to his attack run, then executed a maneuver that defied physics. She put her Apache into a sideways slide that kept her guns trained on the fighter while moving out of his firing solution. Her chain gun fire walked across his aircraft from nose to tail, and the fighter disintegrated in midair. 6 down, 14 to go, Alice announced with deadly calm. Colonel Petrov realized his squadron was facing something beyond normal military capability. This American pilot wasn't just skilled, she was operating at a level that transcended standard aviation training. All units, full retreat, Petrov ordered. We cannot defeat this pilot with conventional tactics. But Alice wasn't finished with them. And now the most incredible part, Alice's helicopter combat mastery that day revealed her not just as a legendary pilot, but as an aviation legend. Negative, hostiles, Alice's voice came over their radio frequencies. You came here to fight. Let's finish this. She pursued the retreating squadron with relentless efficiency. Her Apache moved through the sky like a predator hunting prey, each attack perfectly timed and positioned for maximum effect. Her 7th and 8th kills came when 2 enemy helicopters tried to use a mountain range for cover. Alice anticipated their escape route and was waiting for them on the other side. Her missiles found their targets before the enemy pilots even knew she was there. The 9th kill was a masterpiece of helicopter gunnery. An enemy fighter tried to escape by flying at maximum speed toward friendly territory. Alice pursued him through a series of canyon walls, her Apache threading through spaces that seemed too narrow for aircraft. When the fighter was forced to pull up to clear a mesa, Alice was perfectly positioned underneath him. Her chain gun fire gutted the aircraft from below. 9 down, 11 remaining, Alice reported to Thunderbird Base. Hostiles are in full retreat, but I'm maintaining pursuit. Colonel Petrov couldn't understand how one pilot in one helicopter was systematically destroying his entire squadron. His remaining pilots were demoralized, terrified, and making tactical errors that would have been unthinkable at the start of the engagement. Alice's 10th through 12th kills demonstrated why the Pentagon had trusted her with solo deep strike missions. She used advanced helicopter tactics that combined old-school flying skills with modern combat experience, creating a fighting style that no enemy had encountered before. Her missiles found their targets with supernatural accuracy, despite the lack of computer guidance. Her gunnery was so precise that she could disable aircraft without destroying them, allowing her to conserve ammunition while maximizing psychological impact on the remaining enemy pilots. By the time Alice had eliminated 15 of the original 20 aircraft, the remaining 5 enemy pilots were completely demoralized. They'd witnessed aerial combat mastery that exceeded anything in their training or experience. "American pilot, please," Colonel Petrov's voice crackled over the radio. "My remaining pilots surrender. We cannot compete with your skill level." Alice considered the surrender offer for exactly 3 seconds. "Negative. You came here to destroy American ground forces. That mission ends when your aircraft are neutralized." Now comes the most dangerous part. The remaining 5 aircraft included Colonel Petrov himself, a 20-year veteran with over 300 combat missions. He realized that conventional tactics were useless against Alice's supernatural flying ability. Petrov made a desperate decision that would either save his remaining pilots or get them all killed. He ordered them to form a kamikaze formation, all 5 aircraft attacking simultaneously from different angles, with the goal of ramming Alice's helicopter if their weapons failed to destroy her. "All units, final attack formation," Petrov ordered. "If we cannot defeat her with skill, we'll defeat her with sacrifice." Alice recognized the kamikaze formation immediately. She had exactly 30 seconds to eliminate 5 aircraft that were attacking from 5 different vectors, each pilot willing to die to complete his mission. Most pilots would have tried to escape. Alice decided to prove why she was the best helicopter pilot in the world. She put her Apache into a vertical climb that used gravity and engine power to create an impossible flight profile. As the 5 enemy aircraft converged on her position, she was already above them, looking down at the perfect target formation they'd created. Her final 5 kills came in a sequence that lasted exactly 18 seconds. Chain gun fire, Hellfire missiles, and rocket salvos delivered with computer-like precision despite the complete absence of electronic assistance. When the smoke cleared, 20 enemy aircraft lay scattered across the Nevada desert, and Alice Carter's Apache was the only aircraft still flying. And now, the bombshell drops. As Alice returned to Thunderbird Base, she received a secure communication that would change her understanding of the entire mission. Carter 1, this is General Harrison. Outstanding work out there, but we need to debrief you on the real nature of today's exercise. Exercise? Alice replied, confusion evident in her voice. Sir, I just engaged 20 hostile aircraft in active combat. Those were American pilots flying captured enemy aircraft, Alice. This was a test to evaluate whether human skill could triumph over superior numbers and advanced technology. The electronic warfare jamming was intentional. Alice felt her blood run cold. You're telling me I just shot down 20 American pilots? Negative. All pilots ejected safely when their aircraft were hit. This was a carefully controlled evaluation using drone technology and remote piloting. But your performance was real, and it has revolutionary implications for aerial combat doctrine. The exercise had been designed to answer a critical question. Could exceptional pilot skill overcome overwhelming technological and numerical disadvantages? Alice had provided a definitive answer. Here comes the real shock. 3 months after the Nevada exercise, Alice was promoted to major and placed in charge of developing a new aerial combat training program for the entire Air Force. Her techniques, which had seemed impossible to conventional pilots, became the foundation for a revolutionary approach to helicopter combat that emphasized pilot skill over technological dependence. The lesson of Nevada, Alice told her first class of instructor pilots, is that computers can calculate faster than humans, but they can't improvise, adapt, or think creatively under pressure. Those are uniquely human capabilities. She walked to the whiteboard and began drawing flight patterns. When your electronics fail, when your targeting systems go down, when everything digital is dead, you still need to be able to fly, fight, and win using nothing but skill and instinct. One student raised his hand. Major Carter, how do we develop that level of capability? Alice smiled. By understanding that every computer system you have is a tool, not a crutch. Train like your life depends on your flying ability, because someday it will. But the real surprise was coming now. 5 years after the Nevada exercise, during a major international crisis, enemy forces launched coordinated cyber attacks that disabled military computer systems across multiple theaters of operation. While other pilots struggled with dead electronics and failed targeting systems, pilots trained in Alice's methods continued flying effective combat missions. Manual targeting techniques and instinctive flying skills saved entire air operations when computerized systems failed. Carter Protocol, as it became known throughout NATO air forces, was credited with maintaining air superiority during what military historians called the digital blackout crisis. Major Alice Carter had proven that human skill and training could triumph over any technology, no matter how advanced. But more importantly, she'd created a new generation of pilots who understood that true mastery came from understanding fundamental principles rather than depending on automated systems. And now the real story begins. Today, Colonel Alice Carter serves as Director of Advanced Flight Training at the Air Force Test Pilot School, where she continues to teach pilots that the most sophisticated avionics system ever created is the human mind, properly trained and applied. Her office displays commendations from successful missions flown using her manual combat techniques. But the decoration she treasures most is a simple note from a former student. "My computers failed over hostile territory last night, but your training didn't. Mission accomplished, all crew safe." Not everyone who carries exceptional abilities needs to be celebrated. Some people quietly revolutionize their fields, leaving behind techniques and wisdom for others to use exactly when technology fails, and human excellence becomes the only option. Alice didn't step forward to become a legend. She simply solved an impossible problem using skills that preserved lives and completed missions. And in doing so, she changed how an entire military branch thought about the relationship between human capability and technological assistance. Sometimes what the world needs isn't someone demanding recognition. It's someone who can teach others to be extraordinary when everything else fails. And so the story finds its true meaning. Somewhere over hostile territory tonight, another pilot trained in Alice's methods is flying manual combat missions despite electronic failures, ensuring that air superiority is maintained and ground forces receive the support they need. Because that's what real strength looks like, not the power that comes from machines, but the expertise that lives within properly trained human beings, ensuring that when technology fails, the mission can still succeed. Alice Carter, combat pilot, aviation innovator, teacher of impossible skills, understood that better than anyone.